Okay. Thank you, Mr. Brown, Mr. Freeman, Mr. Kunzler for questions. Any further public comment? Hearing none, we're going to move to the board for their comments. I'll start with.
Well, I think Mr. Gratzka already anticipated the only concern I had, or one concern I have too. Some of the bus shelters, I think, have been specifically designed to incorporate community art treatment. Art, I can think of one beside the firehouse in Langley that basically would have no area that could support advertising. And I don't know what the situation is in other municipalities, cities on the island, but in a certain sense they were already sponsored because the community cooperated with Island Transit to design an attractive and unique bus shelter. The other thing is that, at least in the city of Langley, maybe in other cities, there are local regulations about placing advertisement on public property. And we, of course, would want to abide by whatever those regulations are. I think in the case of Langley, it requires actually approval by the Design Review Board in Langley.
Well,
Yeah, Jim brought up the same question I was going to have is we're looking into just to make sure there's no RCW or Island County Code or specific, city, granted the request for proposals is just to get the company's coming in and whatever they're going to bid to get the job. But yeah, we need, and I'm sure they will take that into account. These people are professionals, but I just want to make sure that we're not, when it comes to the shelters, like yours has been sponsored by Northfield, in the Coupeville area, they may have specific aesthetics that need to be considered. So that's the only question I have. Otherwise, I think it's a great idea. And I think it'll be met with a lot of happiness on the part of the public, actually, especially if it's drawing in income that we can use to provide better service. Let's do it.
Thought of one other comment. Is there a possibility of reserving some of the, perhaps more relevantly, the inside space for public service type announcements? Because that was another way to encourage public enthusiasm. Because people who ride the bus are the ones maybe who would be most interested in some of those public service announcements, or at least would benefit from the public service announcements.
certainly.
You had some comments.
Real quick, Mr. Chairman, as far as particular municipalities, of course, I would require them to check in with each and every one of them and make sure first of all that there weren't any code violations, that it was acceptable. The other thing is to allow municipalities to have some sort of input into or approval process of what type of advertising is appropriate or they deem appropriate for the municipality. So yes, I mean, we want to ensure that there's, that we're maintaining a good neighbor policy from all levels.
Well, it could be a good thing because, you look at Oak Harbor, they may want to advertise their music festival. Coopville may want to advertise their arts festival. Langley, Chuchoka. I mean, there's things going on all the time, and then you could get the Chamber of Commerce and these various places on board and say, hey, let's pay Island Transit with these athletes. They pay for advertising for these events, so it might as well be through us.
I have a couple of questions here, comments too, regarding the advertising and including the approval of the message by the different jurisdictions. That could also become a bit of a management issue because we have buses that serve county, Langley, different areas. And if, let's say, Carver has an advertisement, I can't imagine why there would be an objection to like an event, a festival, or even a pride, as long as it's not an offensive thing. Why would let's say, the county or Langley have some ability to say, no, we don't want you to have that kind of advertisement on there? I think that's going to have to be a board decision that will determine what the parameters are for the type of advertisement with input coming from those communities. Does that make sense?
Just a cautionary, when you get into that area, you have to be careful. The way around that is, policy.
Exactly.
It's actually kind of a hot area across the nation right now.
Right.
Yeah, and my concern was not with the property of Island Transit moving through different areas, but rather just with the transit bus stops
Yeah, the
that are fixed in one particular area, need to meet the local code.
No, absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. On the RFQ, or the RFP, will you have does that include a price break between the cost to advertise for the bus and a separate cost itemized for the advertisement in the shelters? Or is it just, is your proposal just kind of a sweeping overall?
No, it would serve either or both purposes. I'm sure that there are some firms that would even do or consider package deals, but that would be an option.
I would think we'd want to see a breakdown.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah,
included.
okay,
Yeah, there's a
okay.
worksheet for that.
Okay, good. And then the other thing is on this request for proposals, you have 11 a.m. with a blank out of which the date is. Obviously, we haven't ratified this thing, so you can't put a date. Do you have a target date that you anticipate that we would send this thing out at if it is approved by the board?
I would say probably at the earliest, sending it out next week. And generally, after advertising, there's a 30-day response period. And I don't know if there's any other requirement than that, but generally it's 30 days.
So you're anticipating within 10 days, this RFP will go out,
Right.
and then there's the response period, and then...
And there's a response period, and I've got a schedule too. It's in the RFP. There are certain milestone dates where there are, there's a period of comment or requests for information by the bidders that you have to have. There are a couple other milestones, I forget what they are, but there are dates in between before you actually review the proposals, and then there's some time frame there, and then there's a period for notifying the proposers, and then you have to give the proposers time to develop their sources and their advertisers before you can actually get it on the vehicle. So there's a protracted period of various events there that don't allow it to be an overnight sort of thing.
Well, when I'm listening to your timelines in there, it looks like it's possible that we could be into July with some positive action.
I think it's going to be a little longer.
Okay,
I think, yeah, more towards the end of the summer.
so 2015,
Yes,
how's that?
yes,
That is consistent with one of our
yes.
points in our recovery plan. One of the other things I've observed with other transit systems, I think Skagit was one of them, if I remember, and also the Wenatchee one, where they do